Hello everybody, welcome back to another Weather Central forecast. Hope you guys are on a fantastic day. In today's forecast, we will be going over a possible severe weather event that will occur tomorrow. This could possibly be a strong severe thunderstorm outbreak with some tornadoes possible, as we will go over later in the Storm Prediction Center's forecast for this. This forecast will be a little bit thrown together as I don't have much time to film, but I did want to give you guys a forecast as tomorrow does look to be pretty dangerous in terms of severe weather. I do want to start off with a disclaimer that these forecasts are my opinion. They are based off of model guidance and past occurrences of weather. For the most accurate and up-to-date weather, please consult your local National Weather Service office, as they will have more accurate and up-to-date information than I will on these major United States weather events, just like this one will be. I hope you guys do enjoy this forecast. Let's go ahead and go over to our temperature analysis for today. So here we are with today's 2-meter temperature analysis. You can see very warm day for parts of the eastern United States, all the way up to the mid-Atlantic. You're seeing above 60s. So most of the places in the 70s and 80s. You can see we have a little bit of a cool bubble here that extends down into Missouri, all the way up through Illinois, back up to Minnesota, extending into Canada, where you did see only 50s and 60s with some isolated 40s up into more northernest regions of Minnesota. Very warm day for portions of the Dakotas down to the Nebraska, into Kansas, down into the South Central, where you guys saw 60s plus and then 80s and 90s as you got closer down to the south, down here into Texas and Oklahoma, off to Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, and North Carolina. We did see some of those regions throughout those areas in the 80s. So generally a very warm day for most of the United States, excluding this little bubble here, and off to the Pacific Northwest, where you only saw temperatures, the highest cap out around upper 50s. So here we are with tomorrow's Storm Prediction Center outlook here. You can see in this green here is where you're going to be expecting your general thunderstorm risk, and that is extending for parts of Michigan all the way down to Florida, off to the mid-Atlantic, up into parts of the Ohio Valley, as well as seeing those general thunderstorm risks. As you get into this green, this darker green here, is where you're going to expect maybe some strong severe thunderstorms at times, but generally your threat's going to stay on the lower side in terms of hail and wind damage. Tornadoes look to be out of the question pretty much for the marginal risk here, as we will go over in just a little bit on that tornado probability outlook. Going into this yellow here, you have a slight risk. This is where you could see some possible isolated tornadoes, but your main risk will be wind and hail damage, especially off to the more western portion of this slight risk. You will be seeing a very significant chance of hail, as we will also be going over in this video as well. And we see a pretty broad region of an enhanced risk, and that does cover 103,000 square miles, as indicated down here in the key. The enhanced risk covers a population of over 4,500,000 people, or 4,500,000 people, just approaching 5 million people. That slight risk covers over 15 million people, and that marginal risk covers over 25 million people. And we don't have any, sort of population, chance or population forecast for how much this general thunderstorm risk covers, but I would expect a lot of people. But this general thunderstorm risk, that's your, spring thunderstorm, so it's nothing to be too concerned about. But definitely some of these thunderstorms that are, down into parts close to these marginal risks could be severe at times. But generally, like I said, general thunderstorm risk will stay under a fairly low impact for this event. So here is the Storm Prediction Center's tornadic outlook. We will also be going over wind and hail damage. You can see pretty much for this slight risk is where you do have that 2% chance of tornadic probability here. That covers a population of over 4,500,000. So yeah, that is where that slight risk is. That is the 5% here. That is where your enhanced risk is. That's where you are seeing that 5% chance of tornadoes. And then out into this green is where you did have that slight risk, and that will be covering for a 2% chance of tornadic probability. So still, if you guys are in this green, there definitely still could be some isolated tornadoes, but they are predicting that the most tornadic activity will occur within this region that I am circling here. So if you guys are anywhere in this region or know anybody in this region, please share this video with them so that they can be weather aware for tomorrow. I don't think that I'll be live streaming this event. There is a slight possibility, though, that I will. So definitely stay tuned to my channel just in case I do end up going live on this event here. So let's go ahead and go over to wind. So you can see here for wind, we have generally a broader region of damage possible from wind. You can see we have a 5% chance here in this brown, and that's extending for most of the marginal risks here. Just gets into southern Missouri there, but generally stays for portions of the south central down to Texas, all the way back up through Florida and Georgia up into Tennessee, seeing that 5% chance of wind damage. Going into this yellow here is where you have that 15% chance, and so definitely, maybe put your guys' trash cans inside your garage so that it doesn't tip over, or anything that you guys have that could very easily get knocked over. Make sure you guys put those inside or in your garage, as it will be a lot easier if you just don't have to clean it up after the storm, because the storms most likely will produce some wind damage in some sorts. Going into this red here is where you have that 30% chance, and this is where they have their highest probability for wind damage. So if you guys live in this region or know anybody in this region, like I said, share this video with them so that they can get some of this information on this event, as this could be affecting them pretty heavily. Going into the hail outlook here, you can see we have a very high chance of hail for the what is that again, the enhanced risk, and you have a significant hatched risk here, which means that there is a significant chance that you do get, sorry, I don't know what just happened there. Here, let's go ahead and go back here. So that hatched risk basically means that there's a very significant chance of this hail damage occurring, and usually, the National Weather Service is pretty conservative when they do issue this hatched risk, and almost every time this year so far that they have, it has come true. So if you guys know anybody in this region, share this video with them, make them weather aware that they will be getting some sort of bad storms tomorrow. So here we are with composite reflectivity for the system. We will also be going over CAPE, which is the convective available potential energy for this event, as this does look to be more of a CAPE event than a shear event by far. Shear stays relatively very low for this, but you can see already going into tomorrow, Friday, we do have some strong thunderstorms that are making its way into Texas. Let's go ahead and get a sounding on this right here, just so we can kind of test out and see what we might be seeing here. So we have possible hazard type tornado here. Let me move this screen over just a little bit so you guys can see this full sounding. So we have possible hazard type, which is a tornado here. Let me go ahead and make my pin a little smaller. Tornado hazard type, we have a decently nice critical angle. You can see the photograph is pretty all over the place there. Our storm slinky's looking pretty good. Relatively lower shear towards the surface here with only 22 knots. So that definitely could be better. Our lifted index stays relatively low for what you really would want. You would really want something around -8 plus, but still this is hinting towards a very unstable atmosphere here. But still, with all of that, we still only have over 1,300 joules per kilogram of CAPE. We have dew points of 64 and temperatures of 78. So it'll definitely be supportive for this. We have supercell composites of 7. And we have a significant tornado perimeter of 1.3 there. You can see we have a little bit of capping up into the atmosphere, but generally nothing too crazy for this sounding that we're seeing right now. Still showing that maybe these aren't quite going to be supercells just yet, but they definitely could be in the future once they move eastward. We'll move this on. You can see here, let me switch this real fast. Okay, we're ready to go. So we can see we already have some sort of precipitation. It did die down fairly quickly, but up into parts of northeastern Oklahoma there. Off to the western portion of Oklahoma, there will be a lot of capping up in the atmosphere, which is going to prevent most of those really strong severe thunderstorms. We'll move this on to when this will occur. You can see right here we have some sort of stronger thunderstorms making its way onto parts of the Texas and Oklahoma border. As they are going to move eastward, you can see we get a nice little bit of moisture digging up here that will be into parts of the Ozarks by then, where you could see some possible strong thunderstorms up into parts of northwestern Arkansas, up into parts of northeastern Oklahoma there. And then you can see these cells become more widespread up here which that tornado chance up there is 0 to none. So you're not really looking at too much of a tornado chance. Actually, you're not really looking at a tornado chance, but generally some very strong thunderstorms here, as you guys are in that general thunderstorm risk and that marginal risk for the more southern portions here. I'm not going to take a sounding because it doesn't look too significant down there. Something that's going to be significant, though, let's go ahead and take a sounding off of this right here. This was 4 portions of Arkansas, I believe. So our potential hazard type is only a marginal severe here. So we're not looking at anything crazy off this. We're not even showing a critical angle here. So this is definitely not a good sounding to be looking at here. So generally by, let's see what time this is. This is around Friday night. You're still looking at a generally low tornado risk here. But we will be getting a lot of this moisture up here that will be plummeting down to the south and east. And that will aid in some possible stronger severe weather here. We see some of these cells already firing up as we're getting some Gulf moisture pushed into this system. You can see isolated cells would be a better chance of producing tornadoes, as they will have, all of that energy to support that one little cell rather than those, 20 different cells that form that cluster there. We'll go ahead and take a sounding in central Arkansas here, see what it's showing. No potential hazard types, so looks like we already are getting that cold front moving its way through here. So generally, the NAM3K is showing, a more quiet solution to what the National Weather Service is, or the Storm Prediction Center is hinting towards. But going into a sounding just, into parts of, what was that again? I believe it was Louisiana. We'll go and check in just a little bit. Very low CAPE values and a lot of capping, but it's for some reason showing a marginal tornado. Don't really believe that because there is a lot of capping in the atmosphere. So what the NAM3K is showing is it's showing a generally lower risk for these tornadoes so far. We'll move this on just a little bit more. It looks like this squall line will be a lot more better to produce this. So this will be Saturday. We can see very, very strong precipitation throughout these thunderstorms. We can see no potential hazard types still, as we are having those dew points and temperatures lining up a lot, which is causing for less instability up into the atmosphere, as we do have such not a far range between the two, because there actually is the exact same temperature there. No capping, so if that temperature did decrease slower than what is predicted, you might be able to see some sort of tornadic probabilities there, but still generally looking at a 0 to none chance. Looking at the potential hazard types into later in Saturday, you're seeing severe potential hazard type. You're seeing CAPE just at 500 joules on the surface. Shear is very low, and dew points and temperatures are the exact same. So NAM3K looks to be a more conservative model on this system in terms of not showing any types of tornadic development for this system. And lastly, before we do in this video, we are going to be looking at the surface-based CAPE. This is measured in joules per kilogram there. Generally, you want the higher CAPE. The higher CAPE will aid in those stronger thunderstorms. So you can see we have around 3,000 to 3,500 joules per kilogram concentrated down into parts of Louisiana, off into Mississippi. That is definitely going to be supportive enough if you do get precip to dig down there, which you won't at this time. Generally, that threat stays up to parts of the Ozarks, down into parts of north central Arkansas there, just east of Harrison, Arkansas. Moving this on, you can see some very high CAPE, over 2,500 joules per kilogram throughout the Ozarks. You can see we generally have a possibly a strong thunderstorm here, as there is no CAPE, so that thunderstorm is using up all that CAPE. So definitely some strong thunderstorms for portions of, just south of Fort Smith, Arkansas there. You can see some generally higher CAPE on this frontal boundary here. You can definitely see it moving through, trying to press down and, really get rid of all this instability. But what that's really doing is it's pushing that instability off to the eastern portion of that frontal boundary, and it's going to support some very strong thunderstorms down into Texas, as we did see on the models here. We're seeing CAPE approaching just over 4,500 joules per kilogram, which is definitely a lot of CAPE to work with by far. Definitely you could see some very strong thunderstorms if you do get precip to line up here. Not saying that you guys will, but it's definitely a possibility here. I just wanted to go ahead and take a sounding and see what this is showing. So here we are on this sounding here. we saw that 4,500 joules per kilogram. The surface CAPE is showing over 5,000 joules per kilogram of convective available potential energy. You're seeing your temperatures at 83 and your dew points at 69. So definitely, very high dew points, very high temperature, and you can see no capping up into the atmosphere here, as is shown as well here. Our lifted index is at negative 13. So you definitely, if you do get precip here, you could be looking at some very strong thunderstorms and possibly tornadoes into portions just south of the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. You can see it's showing potential hazard types as tornadoes. You're getting some sounding analogs popping up, some supercells, and some really strong hail. Our shear is still relatively low to the surface, but still is enough to work with. So is our storm relative helicity here, just under 100. You generally want that a little bit higher. But we're seeing our supercell composites just under 10 by 0.3, and then our significant tornado perimeters at 2.2 here. So definitely, you could be seeing some strong thunderstorms, but our limiting factor here is our precipitable water, showing that there's generally not that much moisture in the air at this time. So generally that risk is going to stay fairly low relative to if you guys did have that precip line up throughout those areas. We'll move this on even more. You can see that some very strong CAPE still centered south of the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, and that will be pressing eastward and delivering a lot of CAPE off to portions of western Dixie Alley here. Same regions that got affected yesterday, and we're still having a little bit of that CAPE transferring, still over 2,500 joules per kilogram, but generally it stays fairly low towards the end of this event here, and eventually all that CAPE will move off to the Mid-Atlantic, where on day 3 you do have a slighter risk of severe weather. So that is about it for this Weather Central forecast, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy this forecast. I hope you guys are staying safe if you guys are going to be affected by this event, and I'll see you guys in the next Weather Central forecast.